There's very few photos of Robert E. Howard that don't have him in cross planes, beside the house there. There's some where they're screwing around with, dressed up like cavemen and stuff, and there's no way to tell where that is because there's just some trees and dirt and stuff, and how do you know where that is? The few that we have that we can recognize, and as long as Pop's hobby is taking photographs of places, historic pictures and retaking them, I thought, all right, there's a hand, 3 or 4 pictures of Bob Howard where he's somewhere where we can find. So let's do that. So one of our trips was to New Mexico. Bob Howard had a fascination with the Lincoln County Wars, so we went to Lincoln town and found the old courthouse. Happened to have Don Heron with us that year, and so Don became Ramon Maez, I think the guy's name is, and I get to be Bob Howard, and we found the spot and took the picture there, just like the Fort McCavick shot. And yeah,
is that the porch foundation, whatever that is? Yeah, is that stone?
It looks like it.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, it's not there anymore though.
Yeah.
Although there is some stone underneath here.
There's stone. Yeah, there's stone underneath the wood.
It looks to me like what's happened is the grade of the streets.
They filled the street in, or either that or the building settled.
Because the top part looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Whoever restored the building did a bang-up job of it. What caught my eye was this little lattice work.
Yeah, the cross.
Yeah, that's what it was.
And the angle's not quite right because you couldn't stand in quite the right spot. And you can see there's a handicap bar there or whatever that they didn't have over here. So we had to make do with the best we could in that situation. Don didn't want to put the bar through his belly. Besides that occupation, we're also trying to go to the places that Howard mentions going, especially if there's a specific place that he mentions going. 'Cause he talks about going to this town and going to that town. He's not always real clear about where he was at in those towns. On one trip, he mentions going to a hotel that was more fort than hotel. He describes it pretty well. He talks about when it was built. This is in Lampasas, is that how you say it? Lampasas. He mentions stopping there with his mom on one of their trips to Temple, where the hospital was. The car broke down in Caparis Cove. It was a hell of a trip. But they did spend the night in a hotel in Lampasas. Lampasas. You Texans are going to have to train me. And he says it's more fort than hotel, and it was built on a certain day. You can see the little Texas symbol there, with those historical markers that are everywhere. That says this hotel was built when Bob Howard said it was built. And it kind of looks like a fort. And then if you look on the back side, the fort imagery is just all over the place. It's kind of a sprawling yard with this fencing all over the place. So fairly certain that that's the hotel that they stayed at on their trip to Lampasas. Another place that Howard mentions going specifically is the Aztec Bar in El Paso. He was on a road trip with Truett Benson. They did a tour up through New Mexico, and then they came down to El Paso, and I think they went into Mexico, whatever town that is, Juarez, right over from El Paso. So got to find the Aztec Bar. He mentioned it specifically. Our friend, the city directory for El Paso, the library there is great. Bring your flash drive. They've got Sanborn maps. You can just save them right onto your flash drive and take them home. We found the appropriate year, the appropriate business with the street address, 100 San Antonio East. We asked the librarian, "You have a San Antonio street around here?" They said, "Oh yeah, down there."
Right down.
How about a 100?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, down there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Come to the window. It's right there.
Uh-huh. So we took a little drive. This building is on the corner, San Antonio. It says 100 San Antonio right here. I had originally wrote that I think it was a really yucky souvenir store, really colorful, crazy. I thought that was it, but it turns out this, all the way at the edge of here, this is where the 100 address would have been. But this is the building, and it's no longer the Aztec. But after we went here. I posted the picture and I wrote a little bit about it on Damon Sasser's Two Gun blog. And someone emailed me as a result of that, and they sent me this. The guy's father had owned the Aztec bar, and this was the oldest photograph that he had of it when it actually said Aztec. But you can tell by the windows up here, we go back one, and the design work here, it's the same building, but it was just there. Okay. All right, anyone who's read Dark Valley Destiny knows that, well, maybe you don't know because it's kind of a small thing, but again, I'm a tad obsessive. In Dark Valley Destiny, DeCamp says, well, let me back up. Robert E. Howard says in his letters that he once lived in the Wichita Falls country. DeCamp said that he went to all of the county seats that are part of Wichita Falls country looking for Dr. Howard's registration, and he said he didn't find anything there. So lots of people have speculated, did Howard ever live there at all? Was he just spinning a tale to talk about how large Texas was or how many different places he lived? And again, I have that little compulsive element to me. So for one of the trips, I went, let's go to the Wichita Falls country and see if we can't find some Howard.
Well, didn't DeCamp look at every place
He said he
in
looked-
Wichita Falls County?
No, he said he looked
Okay.
into 3 counties.
Okay.
Wichita County, Clay County, and whatever one's on the other side of Wichita. Maybe it was Montague.
Yeah.
He said he looked in the 3 counties and that there was no evidence of him at any of those counties. We went to Montague County because Isaac Howard had registered there in 1902, someone has said. I can't find the picture or the document. Do you have it? You need to share it. We went there and they didn't have any records that they could find. We were looking for a book called a physician's registry or a medical register. And there's like 3 or 4 different titles for the book. They're all basically the same thing. When a doctor showed up in the new county, he had to present his papers so that he could practice there. And they'd sign in the book, they'd copy down what his certificate said, and then he could do whatever he wanted in the county. We went to Montague, they couldn't find that book. Most places can't find that book. We went right next door to Clay County, walked into the district clerk's office and said, hey, looking for a physician's registry or a medical register. And she goes, oh, that. No one's ever asked to look for that before. She just turned around, pulled it right out, and plopped it on front. And this is what it looks like.
Wipe the dust off. And
Yeah, the really cool old books. They don't physicians don't have to do this anymore. But really cool old books. And when you cracked it open, there's an index page in the front. It says H. Find H. It says Howard. I-M. Page whatever. And here's what you get. So this just pretty much says what kind of medicine Dr. Howard was practicing, when he was born, and all that other stuff. But the really cool part of it is that his post office address is Byers, Texas. Byers is a little speck town up on the Oklahoma line, just like Robert E. Howard said, in Wichita Falls country, even though it's not in Wichita County. It's
Definitely
you
not.
practically throw a rock into Wichita County.
definitely not Burke Burnett.
Right, not Burke Burnett. We did go there, didn't find anything there. Wichita County was not helpful at all, although the town of Electra is very nice. After the Wichita Falls country, we're like, okay, score. We know that at least Dr. Howard was there for a while, so that backs up Howard's claim. On the way home from there, we went to Gaines County, which is where Seminole is. The Howards lived in Seminole in 1908-ish. Anyway, they were refurbishing the courthouse in Seminole, but they let us go up to the attic where they had stored all their books. Couldn't find a physician's registry, but they did have a death index, register of deaths. Cracked that open and found our buddy Isaac Howard somewhere. I can't see it.
Bottom
Yeah,
right.
bottom
right.
There we go. I am Howard, Seminole, Texas. He had reported the death of a newborn baby. So that was good enough for me. He was there for sure.
What date is
So, pardon?
that? What date was that?
I've got a better image of it.
It says there on the left.
July 1st, 1908. So that's when we started getting interested in courthouses, because you can find a lot of neat stuff in courthouses. What's next?
The bust.
The bust. Dr. Howard and Robert both talked a lot about South Texas, and they seem to have had some kind of land deals going on down there or something. They were drawn to South Texas. I think this is all the places that Robert Howard mentions in South Texas, either visiting, or I think these are all places he visited. We went to all these places this January?
This January.
This January. So this is what, I'm done now. I've visited every place that Howard mentions because of this trip. Unfortunately, all we saw were a lot of courthouses and a lot of cool little towns. The only place I found any piece of paper was in Crystal City, and it was related to Dr. Howard's sister, Willie McClung. They had purchased a fairly large tract of land in Crystal City proper and then sold it in December 1910. There's one of the courthouses we saw.
Goliad.
Texas has some cool courthouses. They're almost all of them are very ornate with the steeple things. It's just really nice. The South Texas trip, a lot of people they really wanted us to find something. I'd tell them what we were looking for, and they'd go, really? This lady, I forget her name, but what county was this one? Way south.
Edinburgh, I believe, is
Yeah.
the county seat, whichever county.
The
that
county
is.
seat of Edinburgh, or Edinburgh is the county seat. They didn't have anything in the courthouse at all. They had, some of the courthouses are so cool, you can just type in the name and they'll tell you if there's land records or not or whatever. Edinburgh is that way for land records, but when you would get into the vital records, births and deaths and those sorts of things, they didn't have any electronic way to look for a doctor, and they wouldn't let me look at their birth index because, well, those people are still alive. You can't be looking at them. But this lady said, we've got the old books in the warehouse. I'll give you a call if you can come. So we had already headed down the road, and she called, and we turned around and came back and spent a while digging through boxes and crates and looking for books. The forklift operator was even there pulling stuff off the shelf and dropping it off for us to look at. It didn't find anything, though.
You're almost done.
I'm almost done. Okay. Lately, I've been obsessing about the Howard family tree because some people in Howard fandom have lots of information but don't like to share it. So I decided, you know what, I'll just find it myself and then I'll share it with everyone, and then screw those people that don't share it. So what I found looking at the Howard genealogy was that one of, let's see here, Robert Howard, Dr. Howard, William Benjamin, Henry Howard, right? I think that's how it works. In the 1849 gold rush, I think Howard wrote that three of his grandpa, his grandpa, William B., and two brothers headed west to California for the gold rush. One of them got sick, one of them went back to Mississippi, but one of them made it all the way to California. And that's where we live. So I was like, hey, who's that guy? While I was doing the research on the Howard line, I found one of those gentlemen's name was the same as Dr. Howard, Isaac Mordecai Howard. So he was the first, and he would have been Robert Howard's great uncle. I was messing around on Ancestry, and I found a voter registration for Sonora, California, Isaac M. Howard. I went, I wonder if that's the guy. And since we're so close, I took a day off work and we drove on up to Sonora. At that courthouse, we found a couple of land documents and a quartz claim. He's trying to find some gold in the gold rush. Very much like Dr. Howard, it seems like he bought some land, he homesteaded some land, and then he sold it for all he could as soon as they awarded him title to it. The government said, okay, you've homesteaded long enough, it's all yours. Great, sold it.
Here's a deed.
Yeah, and there's a deed. But then he vanishes after that, too. I can't find another record for him after he sold his property, so he's got his pockets full of money and poof.
So after visiting the courthouse in Sonora, we're ensconced in our Best Western hotel room. I'm looking at the iPad or something. Rob is looking at the documents that we had obtained copies of, and Rob says, hey, Pop, is Mount Diablo near here? And I said, No, not really. It's on the coast near the Bay Area. Why do you ask? And he said, well, this deed mentions Mount Diablo as a reference, and from there are townships and ranges listed using Mount Diablo as a reference point. So now I recall from an old physical geography class that I probably took a century or more ago, but we had this big lecture about topo maps and the township and range system. Well, it just so happened that I had this marvelous app on my iPad, and I'd taken the time to download the map covering the Sonora area, so it's on the iPad. So I said, well, Rob, read me the township and range again, and sure enough, we came up with it. Townships are north-south. It's called a meridian. That runs through Mount Diablo, and then the baseline is the east-west line. It runs east and west through Mount Diablo. Turns out that Isaac Howard's claim is 2.5 miles north of baseline and about 96 miles east of Mount Diablo. So each township is 36 sections. Each section is 1 square mile. Isaac's claim is in section 24. Booted up the iPad, took a look, found section 24, and I put an indicator where Isaac's claim would have been. It says Ponderosa Way bisects the section from north to south, so I thought, well, that's no big deal. We'll get up early in the morning and go there. Well, Ponderosa Way is now Yosemite Road, but the GPS says we're smack dab in the middle of section 24, so that's it. Isaac's claim is the rolling wooded hills behind the meadow and the structures you see in the foreground.
Back to Pop's hobby of taking pictures where someone else took them before. Pop that one up.
Everyone's seen that.
All of the Howard fans have seen this picture before. To the best of my knowledge, we didn't know where that was. This is Truett Vincent over here, and that's Bob Howard and them boxing. To the best of my knowledge, again, we didn't know where it was. Somebody might have known. But we all found out when Glenn Lord's stash came to us, and we found this picture in his collection. So you can tell it's the same place that was the other picture was taken. On the back of this picture, Bob Howard had typed, Truett and Clyde doing a bathing beauty pose at the Cisco Dam. So now we know where it is, so we got to go take a picture there. We found some stuff online to kind of pinpoint exactly where it was. We didn't even know if we'd be able to get into the dam because it looks like there's you might have to climb a fence and maybe break something to get in there. But we went there, when was that, yesterday?
Yesterday.
And did this.
And it turns out the bathing beauty part is a connection, because at the back of the dam is the site of, what was it,
Oh,
the
it's like the
world's
largest
largest swimming pool?
yeah,
or
at the
or the
time.
largest swimming pool in Texas. So I speculate that those guys were on the dam all right, but they were probably scoping out the chicks on the other side of the dam.
And Howard even wrote a
That's
letter
what
to
I
Harold
know.
Priest talking about the young bathers at the Cisco Dam.
And Robert and I can verify. We did those things back when we were in high school. When we were at Cisco. That was a great place.
trip.
So here's my mom and I yesterday. In the bathing beauty pose, exactly.
Come on.
Wood rails or?
No, it's concrete. If you want to go and visit that yourself, it's a fairly short drive up to Cisco. The dam proper has this kind of set up on each side of a reinforcement in the middle. And you're going to want to take, from the reinforcement, count 12 posts south, right?
Yep.
12 posts south, that's the 12th post from the reinforcement in the middle. Anyway,
The road indicates that you can access the dam from either direction, but it's all closed off. The correct way you'd have to drive past it from Cisco
come in on
to the north entrance. I think it's called Country Club Road, and then proceed south. And as Rob said, in the center of the dam is a reinforced area. So at the reinforced area, count 12 posts and you're there.
And here's the other.
move on.
That's incredible.
Not me.
Good job.